Lechi lach to a land that I will show you. Lech lecha to a place you do not know.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, okay. So since we begin with Tu Bishvat, let's begin with a very short children's song, which is the most popular one for Tu Bishvat. This is something like every kid starting from maybe 3 years old. Yeah, they will be singing it in the kindergarten and elsewhere. So
השקדיה פורחת ושמש בזורחת, ציפורים מראש כל גג מבשרות את בוא החג. ט"ו בשבט הגיע, חג לאילנות, ט"ו בשבט הגיע, חג לאילנות, ט"ו בשבט הגיע, חג לאילנות, ט"ו בשבט הגיע, חג לאילנות. ט"ו בשבט.
okay. Well, now you can see why every single kid in Israel knows this song, simply because it is a very simple one. It basically has one phrase, and that is Tu Bishvat Higia, Chag Leilanot. So Tu Bishvat is the 15th in the month of Shvat, and Chag is a holiday, not just holiday, but an important biblical holiday. And Ilanot is a multiple for Ilan, and Ilan is a tree. Okay, we usually use the word et, which is somehow more common, but it means exactly the same as Ilan. And so Ilana, our guardian angel here, she is, her name is the female version of Ilan tree. So she is a female, beautiful tree, of course. And somehow this particular tree you see in front of you, and this is the almond tree, this one became the one most associated with Tu Bishvat, even though Tu Bishvat is generally speaking about trees. So this presentation is dedicated to Ilana and the trees of the world. And yes, Nili, that's for you. I don't see Neely right now, but as you know, guys, she is usually with us. And so as soon as we see a cat, we always, we all think of Neely and Ilana. And you see there is a cat here. I hope you can see this cat. And Noah was trying for maybe 10 minutes to take a good photo of it, but it kept moving around. So I took another photo, and so I don't know what's its name, but this one is dedicated to Neely.
Neely Smith says hi and thank you.
Oh, okay. Neely, you're most welcome. You will see another relative of yours later on during the tour. So let's say a few words about Tu Bishvat. So Tu Bishvat is a what? Okay, as I said, and as some of you probably know, it has to do with almonds. And as somebody, I think that was you, Alvin, but I'm not sure. Somebody mentioned that. Somebody mentioned before that probably Sheked, the almond tree was chosen to become the symbol of Tu Bishvat because this is one of the few trees which have flowers before leaves. And so, you see like a barren, dead, brown tree, which is nothing. And then in a few days, it's like full of these beautiful flowers. Sometimes they are pinkish, sometimes they are more white. But it is so surprising, and it makes you so happy, and you always feel like this is the beginning of new life, and this is what Tu Bishvat is all about. Actually, the spring, the beginning of new life after the season of the winter. The story of Tu Bishvat starts from the Mishnah and continues on to our days. You know that the tradition is to have some dry fruits. Originally, these were dry fruits from the land of Israel. And so that tradition had to do with the Jewish diasporas all over the world, because Tu Bishvat is associated to trees, and it's associated to trees planted in Israel and you want to have some fruits from Israel, but you are, let's say, Romania, and the fruits are here, and so the only way to get fruits from Israel, well, the dry fruits. So today, in modern day Israel, it doesn't make much sense because you can have fresh fruit, but the tradition is a tradition, so we still have dry fruits for Tu Bishvat. And the practicing, I would say, the celebration of Tu Bishvat started with, well, here on the left, below the dry fruit, I have a photo. Actually, these are Samaritans, okay? But they are dressed very similar to what the people of Tzfat used to wear while welcoming Shabbat. And this is also what they used to wear while celebrating Tu Bishvat. And they were those who invented something which is called Seder Tu Bishvat. Okay, so that's coming in the nearest future. First, people who actually thought about Tu Bishvat and the meaning of Tu Bishvat were the rabbis of the Mishnah period. So we're talking about the 2nd century CE, and they were talking about 4 different holidays, okay? Actually 4 different Rosh Hashanahs. The sages of the Mishnah thought that they should be not just one Rosh Hashanah, not just one New Year, but actually 4 different New Years. So first of Nisan is the Rosh Hashanah for kings and holidays, as you see, and then Elul first is the Rosh Hashanah for animal types. I'm not even sure how to pronounce it. The sacrifices of animals. And then Tishrei first is Rosh Hashanah for years and tree planting. You see that? So in the times of the Mishnah, they were talking about Tishrei as a celebration of tree planting. And Shvat first is Rosh Hashanah for trees. But we don't celebrate Shvat first for trees. We celebrate Shvat 15th, because this is what Beit Hillel said, you know, in the times of the Mishnah, there were 2 different schools of sages. One is called Beit Hillel and the other one is Beit Shammai. And most cases, the decision of Beit Hillel was accepted. Anyhow, starting from 200 CE, we have 15th of Shvat as the Rosh Hashanah of the trees. And since, you know, the Hebrew alphabet, we don't use numbers, we use letters, and then, you know, we translate numbers into letters. So Tet Vav, or 2, means 15. So 15th of the month Shvat, that's where when we celebrate the tree planting. But this is what they said, you know, nothing actually happened before the 16th century. And then in the 16th century, the sages of Tzfat, the rabbis, the Kabbalistic rabbis in Tzfat, they decided that there should be a special celebration of Tu Bishvat, and they announced a special Seder. So they had Seder for Passover, a special tradition, special prayers, special food, okay? They had Seder for Passover, and then they also had a Seder for Tu Bishvat, and among other things they did for Seder Tu Bishvat in Tzfat, they would drink 4 glasses of wine, okay? We know this number of 4 glasses of wine for Seder Pesach, but they were drinking 4 glasses of wine for Tu Bishvat, but it was not just wine, okay? It was everything is complicated and very special for the Kabbalists. So they would pour 4 glasses of wine. 1 is red, 1 is white, 1 is red with a little bit of white wine, so it's like dark pink. And the last one is white wine with a little bit of red wine. Okay, so then we have 4 different colors. Now why? Okay, in order to understand this, you have to be Kabbalist and you have to live in Israel. The thing is that we have sort of 4 stages of the blooming of the wildflowers. We start with the red flowers, like the anemones, and then we turn to dark pink flowers, and then pale pink, and finally the white. When you see white flowers and yellow flowers, that means that we are in the summer. So the Kabbalists in Sfat, they associated Tu Bishvat with the way nature behaves here in Israel. So I think this is a beautiful tradition. And then somehow it was sort of forgotten. I mean, not forgotten, but if you were not a rabbi, so you did not care about Tu Bishvat, okay? It did not become like a common holiday like Passover, like Sukkot, okay? Because it's not biblical. Anyhow, in the end of the 19th century, here, 1884, in a little farming community called Yesod HaMa'ala, which is not far from Rosh Pina, they were the first, at least known, Jews who decided to celebrate Tu Bishvat by planting trees. And they actually planted 1,500 trees for Tu Bishvat in Yesod HaMa'ala in 1884, and this is how the tradition started. So they planted mostly pomegranates and etrog, and then they planted other trees as well, but that's where it started. And then, some 6 years later, a teacher in a school in Zichron Yaakov, whose name is Ze'ev Yave, he decided that it's not enough just to plant trees. You know, planting trees is nice, but you want to educate kids. He was a teacher, and therefore he took his pupils out to the yard and they planted trees for Tu Bishvat. That was the first time when kids actually planted trees for Tu Bishvat, and this is exactly what we do ever since. So this is the connection between Tu Bishvat and Zichron Yaakov. And here on the right, this photo, you might, well, Ilana, maybe others you can recognize. This is the museum for the first Aliyah, first immigration, and that building used to belong to the clerk of Baron Rothschild, and later, this is where the committee of the school teachers in the land of Israel assembled in the 1906, if I'm not mistaken. And among other things, they decided that starting from now on, Tu Bishvat should be celebrated by every single kid in Israel by tree planting. So we may say that the fact that every school in Israel will plant trees for Tu Bishvat except of this year because of the pandemic, this idea came from this particular building in Zichron Yaakov. And then we have kids and adults planting trees all over Israel. These are photos from the 40s. And there is another very famous, very common song. And these are the words, okay? This is how the planters walk, happiness in their heart and a shovel in their hand. So again, very simple. Let's listen for a few minutes. Okay, here it comes.
כך הולכים השוטרים, רון ולבט בים, מן העיר ומן הכפר, מן העמק מן ההר, בט"ו בשבט, בט"ו בשבט, בט"ו בשבט, בט"ו בשבט. למה באתם השוטרים? נכה בקרקע ובצור וגומות צריך לחפור בהרים ובמישור בט"ו בשבט, בט"ו בשבט.
All right. So it is sort of a musical presentation. Actually, we have more music in the future. I have something to look forward to. And then we make a short visit at the Knesset. This is the Knesset in Jerusalem, of course, the Israeli parliament. And the reason why we're here now is because the Knesset was born on Tu Bishvat. So Tu Bishvat is not just Ilana's holiday. It's not just tree planting holiday. It's not just a capitalist holiday, but this is also the birthday, official birthday of the Knesset. And they did tree planting before the opening ceremony of the first meeting of the Knesset. And this is today. This is something which has to do with our future presentation and the previous presentation. This is a chief commander of the surroundings of Gaza, and he's talking about Project Ye'ur Bitchoni Otef Aza, which is a project of planting trees for security reasons around Gaza. So trees are not just beauty, not just ecology, but also defense. And here on the left, this is last year's Tu Bishvat in my moshav, and this is kids planting well, flowers. There is no Tu Bishvat this year. This is as recent photo as I could get. And now we make it to Rosh Pina. And before we start touring Rosh Pina, let's enjoy some nature and some running water, just a little bit, and almond trees. And we are standing in a little valley which connects Rosh Pina with Tzfat. So Tzfat is in the Upper Galilee, and Rosh Pina is immediately to the east, downhill from Tzfat, and a narrow and pretty steep riverbed connects Tzfat and Rosh Pina. And this riverbed, the wadi, this is the Arabic name for a riverbed, that wadi used to be the main road which connected Tzfat and Rosh Pina. And this is how the first settlers of Rosh Pina made their way to what will become Rosh Pina in the future. So today there is a little hiking path. You can see these hiking marks. It's a beautiful place to hike and to see some almond trees today, and some really beautiful ancient olive trees and more almond trees. As you can see, I was very excited when we walked around there. And you can meet what you heard is the sound of the running water, and this is a free roaring cow. She came to drink some water. She was not sure if it's a good idea to walk next to me, but I told her that she's safe, so she crossed. And these are first anemones. In Hebrew, anemone is a kalanit, because kalanit, the name kalanit comes from the word kala, and kala is a bride. So the idea is that the kalanit is as beautiful as the kala, as beautiful as the bride. So this is the anemone, and as you can see, it is red indeed. And so the first glass of wine of the Kabbalists was red, according to the color of the anemone. And more almonds. By the way, this almond tree already has a little bit of leaves, just the beginning, and of course the beautiful flowers. And in the same time, it has almonds. See down here, this is an almond from the last season. I mean, you can see trees with flowers and leaves and fruit, but the leaves are young, very young. The flowers are young, and the fruits are old and disgusting because they belong to the year before. Okay, but you can still eat those if you roast them. And here, this is a little structure inside which, this is a structure which was made in the Ottoman period. And inside there, this is where a tiny little spring is located. One of these springs which supply water for the stream of Rosh Pina. So in the beginning, I was sitting down on it, and then I stood up on it. And as I stood up on it, so then I could see this beautiful view. Okay, I'm facing the east now, so you are facing east with me. And what you can see here, well, these are the trees of Wadi Rosh Pina. And up here, okay, this is the line, this is the horizon, and these are the Golan Heights. Okay, these are the Golan Heights, which are very well visible from Rosh Pina. And this white, well, it's hard to tell if these are structures, but believe me, these are. These white structures belong to a Arab Bedouin town called Tuba Zangeria. Okay, we will be back to this town later. It participates in our story. And in between the white houses of the Bedouin town and the Golan Heights, we don't see it, but this is where the Hula Valley, the very fertile, the low, the flat valley is located. So we are at the edge of the Hula Valley, and right above us, up there, this is Tzfat. So that's about time to start walking upstairs. These are the same stairs where we met this nice cat and took its photos. So we are on our way now from Wadi Rosh Pina towards the hill where Rosh Pina itself is located. So we are climbing upstairs slowly. Okay, it's pretty steep, so take your time. And we are facing this wall. This is a relatively big building, and this is the synagogue. So we are on our way to the synagogue. This is what these stairs look like from the other side. Okay, now we're standing up there next to the synagogue, looking down to the wadi. And just before we enter the synagogue, just before we enter the synagogue, let's say a few words about how come we actually have this little beautiful town called Rosh Pina. So this whole thing started with an Arab village called Joni. Okay, on the upper right corner, this is a little fraction of a map which was made by the PEF, the Palestine Exploration Fund. Basically, British archaeologists and investigators who traveled the land of Israel, as it was called back then, Palestine, in the end of the 19th century. They made surveys, they made archaeological excavations, and they drew maps. So when we look at the map which was made by the PEF, by these British people, you can see Safed. Okay, this is very obvious. This is large, the town of Safed or Tzfat. We've been there before. And immediately to the east, this is where a small Arab town is located, and this Arab town is called Jawani. Okay, that's the name. Back in 1878, 17 families from Tzfat, okay, ultra-Orthodox Jews, decided that they don't want to live in Tzfat any longer. They don't want to depend upon Jews from overseas who will donate money for their existence. A common practice at the time, something which is called Kaspei HaChalukah. Anyhow, they felt that they don't want to be beggars any longer. They want to work, they want to earn their living, and therefore they walk downhill all the way from Safed to Je'uni along the same little wadi we saw before. They purchased land from the local Arabs and established a little farming community which was called Gei Oni. Okay, Gei Oni. There is a very famous book written by an Israeli writer, Shulamit Lapid, and this book is called Gei Oni. By the way, Shulamit Lapid is famous because of the book, and she's also famous because of her son. Shulamit Lapid's son is Yair Lapid, one of the leading politicians in Israel today. So she has a famous son, and he has a famous mother. Well, Gei Oni, Gai is Wadi is a creek, and Oni, it's my strength, my power. You write it with an Aleph. And they chose the name simply because it sounds Hebrew, but it's similar to Joni. And so in 1878, we have this place established by the ultra-Orthodox named Gei Oni. Unfortunately, they didn't make it. I mean, they did not know how to work. They did not know how to be farmers. They suffered from malaria, and soon afterwards, they gave up. So we started with 17 families, 14 families left, and 3 families stayed, no matter what. One of these families is the family of Schwartz. Okay, please remember the name. It is important. Okay, so Schwartz family and two other families stayed living next to the Arab. Somehow they survived, but not more than that. 4 years later, 1882, and this is a crucial date because this is considered to be the first year of the first Aliyah, first immigration. We have a few hundred of Jews from Romania coming on a ship which is called Titus. They left Romania and they were on their way to the land of Israel. There were two communities there. One community established Zichron Yaakov. The other community established Rosh Pina. So they basically came to Jouni. They bought the land from the unsuccessful settlers of Jouni and established a brand new Jewish community named Rosh Pina. Why Rosh Pina? Because in the Bible we have this phrase, the stone which the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. And cornerstone in Hebrew is Rosh Pina. So here we are on this ship. These are the Jews. They are on their way to the Holy Land. And yes, they made it. They established two communities. We visited one before, and here we are in the second one. Well, there would be no Rosh Pina without this gentleman. So just look at him. His name is David Shuv. This is how he looked like, dressed like a local Turkish gentleman. And this is how he dressed, sort of Jewish European, I would say. And he was the one who made it before the rest of the settlers. And he was the one who purchased the land for the establishment of Rosh Pina, and he was also the one who, or thanks to whom, Yesod HaMa'alah was established. And Yesod HaMa'alah, remember, this is where first Tu Bishvat was celebrated, and he is also responsible for another community called Mishmar Yarden. And well, we're going to have another presentation about the Shuv, but anyhow, he is, let's say, he is Herzl of Rosh Pina. So we made it to the synagogue. This is what the synagogue looks like from outside. And here are a few examples of what it looks from inside. This is the Holy Ark, of course, facing the south, facing Jerusalem, and facing the Wadi at the same time. So through these windows here, you can see the beautiful view of the slope of the Wadi and the almond trees. This is Elijah's chair, for circumcision. And here, the floor right next to the Holy Ark is different from the rest of the floor, because in the beginning, the clerks of Baron Rothschild, because he supported Rosh Pina just as he supported Rishon LeZion and Zichron Yaakov and other places, they wanted to have an elevated stage. I mean, the clerks of the Baron, they didn't want to sit same level as everybody else. That's not for them. So there was a special stage for them right next to the Holy Ark. But then when Baron Rothschild was no longer present and the clerks were no longer present, so it was decided to remove the stage. And so they just placed a new floor. So now everybody's sitting in the same level. And another interesting detail, well, again, this is the same Holy Ark in the synagogue, and these are the lions of Judea. Okay, we know those, especially from Jerusalem. And this is the ceiling. You see, it is a round-shaped ceiling with something which looks like little waves, you see? And that's because when David Shuv purchased the land of Jouni, he really wanted to convince the Jewish community back then in Romania to come and settle. And, among other things, to tell them, to make them happy was that, hey, your future home will be located right next to a spring, right next to a stream. You will be fishing there. It will be all perfect. And then they made it here, and they discovered that the stream, well, you saw how big is the stream. Remember, you saw the cow crossing, and the lake of Hula is not too far, but then you have to have a special permit from the Ottomans to fish in the lake, and they did not have the permit. So anyhow, they never became fishermen, and they just painted the ceiling of their synagogue with these little waves to remind themselves how silly they were believing in these stories David Shuv told them. But it did become one of the most successful communities in Israel. So I'm pretty sure they did not regret. Well, now I would like you to meet Ofer Schwartz. Remember, I told you that you have to remember Schwartz family. And that's because now, for a few minutes, Ofer will become our tour guide. Ofer is a tour guide indeed. He's a colleague of mine, and he studied in a tour guide course, which I was the coordinator of. So we were, in the beginning, we were sort of colleagues and you know, sort of a teacher and a student, and then we became colleagues and friends. And he's an awesome guy. And as you see, his name is last name is Schwartz, which means that he is indeed a descendant of one of the three families which never left Rosh Pina, starting from 1878. So here we have, well, I think I will skip this. You see, I have a link to a YouTube because he participated about 2 years or so ago. A film about the Galilee was made with a very famous Israeli singer, Einat Zaruf. And so he was her guide in Rosh Pina, so he also sort of a celebrity. So this is the Schwartz family, and we will be talking about Alter Schwartz, who started the whole thing, and Chaya Schwartz, his daughter, and Reuven Taikovich. Okay, here they are with their kids. Later they had more kids, and the whole thing is related to Ofer. So here's Ofer, and let's listen to him. I'm not sure if he is here. He told me that he will try to join us. Let me just check if Ofer is here. No, I don't think so. All right, anyhow, so please listen to Ofer.
Hello everybody, my name is
Sorry,
Ofer.
I just forgot to mention, you see there is a bird here, the green bird in the upper right corner. So this is a parrot, and it's called the drara. It's very beautiful, very noisy, very green. It exists all over Israel for the last few decades, and this is the these are the noises you will hear during his speech. Okay, the parrot
Julia?
was literally sitting where it is. Yes.
Yeah, Julia, Ofer Schwartz is on. He's muted at the moment.
He is. Okay, so just a minute. Ofer, אתה שומע אותי? Ofer. Well, I don't know. I don't see him among the participants. And
Look
Ofer?
above Pamela Lazarus.
I
It's-
just
it's
messaged
red.
him.
Yeah, he is still muted.
Is he trying to talk, Steve?
Okay, yeah, I see. עופר, אתה שומע אותי? אם אתה שומע אותי, אתה מוזמן לעשות unmute ולומר שלום? Okay, anyhow, so maybe he will talk to us later, but I'm glad he's here. Yeah, Ofer? Okay, come on.
Hi.
Hey, shalom.
Shalom everybody.
Okay,
Lots of
Yofi,
people.
I'm glad you made it. Okay, so now you can see this little square with Ofer. So Ofer, would you like to tell our audience what you told me on this video, or you just want me to play the video? What do you
I
think?
prefer you play the video. I prefer to play the video.
So no problem. Okay, So I play the video, you listen to the video, and the Drara up here will keep screaming occasionally. Okay? Deal.
Let's say the only thing that I'm offering is a G2 in a regular day. I offer in Hebrew, it's a baby deer. This is the meaning of the name offer in Hebrew. Don't call me Bambi, I don't like it. So I'm standing near a very beautiful house, very important for me. If you look to the side, you can see Schwarz Hotel. This is the first hotel in the Galilee. The person that built it, his name was Alter. Alter, this is the person, you can see his picture, Alter. Alter was one of the pioneers that started and come from Tzfat and build the village, Geoni. Later they renamed the name to Rosh Pina. Alter has a son. His name was Meir. Meir has a son, his name was Amihud. Amihud has a son, his name was Avshalom. Avshalom had a son, his name was Ofer. And Ofer has a daughter, his name is Dana. So it's not that story, I am Ofer. So I am Ofer Schwarz, and this is my grandfather hotel, the first hotel in the Galilee. He was thinking that this is a very good place to have a hotel because this is the main road to Damascus and everybody is passing in the way to Damascus, they can stop here. Out there, one of his job, he was in charge about the mail in Rosh Pina. Twice in a week he was hiking to Tzfat, in the valley of Rosh Pina is down there, climbing to Tzfat, bring the mail from Tzfat to here to Rosh Pina. One of the time that he was doing it, when he came back from Tzfat, he buy for one of his child a toy, a gun toy. And during the way he was coming back to Rosh Pina, a small Arab attacked him. Small group of Arab attacked him. So he put out his gun, put his head up with the guns, and the Arab ran away, and he survived that attack. Another time he was coming from Tzfat, he was coming with his daughter, Chaya. You can see Chaya here, the picture of Chaya. Chaya Itel Schwarz, this lady. And she was coming back from Tzfat to here to Rosh Pina. In the middle of the way, there was meeting another person. His name was Reuven Paikovich. This person, he was here from the second Aliyah, and he was walk like a walker in the fields of Rosh Pina. Family here. So there was meeting in the middle of the way. Reuven Paikovich was in the way to Tzfat. Alter and with his daughter was coming back from Tzfat to Rosh Pina. And they was meeting in the middle of the way. Said hi to each other and they continue each one. The story said that Reuven can't stop thinking about Chaya all the way to Tzfat. So he stopped, turned away, come back to Rosh Pina, and asked Alter if he can marry Chaya, and then he came and married. And Reuven buy land in Machanai, that was a new Moshava, very close to here, north from here. And the story said that except snakes and scorpion and things like that, and swamp, nothing was there. So Alter goes to Machanai and told Reuven, if you want to live in here, you can live, but my daughter, I think it will be better if you come back with me to Rosh Pina. That was what was happening. To here take his wife, and they move and buy a farm in Kfar Tagor. And in Kfar Tagor, he has the last boy born to him. His name was Yugal Paikovich, or Yigal Alon, one of the most strateg famous in the Israeli army, and before that he was the commander of the Palmach.
טוב, עופר, תודה רבה. Yes, so that was a short version of the story Ofer told me. So he is the fifth generation in Rosh Pina, and his children are the sixth generation of Rosh Pina. Here you can see the photo of the same hotel of Alter Schwarz taken in the beginning of the 20th century. You recognize this fence here and this gate here and the balcony up here. This is exactly where Ofer was standing. Now here you can see a pine tree, a relatively young and thin pine tree. And this is the pine tree which grows there today, a huge, mighty tree the same one. So we know for sure that this pine tree is over 100 years old. And this is Yigal Allon, of course. This is Yigal Allon, the one who founded the Palmach striking unit, and he became the commander of the Palmach. And he made friends, and we may say, recruited the Bedouins of Tu Bishvat to become part of the IDF. So, as you might know, Bedouins do military service, unlike the rest of the Muslims, or unlike the majority of the Arab Muslim population. So we have Yigal Allon with the Sheikh of Tu Bishvat, that village we saw from Wadi Rosh Pina. And maybe thanks to this personal connection of Yigal Allon and the Sheikh, we have Bedouins as friends till today. Rosh Pina is famous not just because of being the first Jewish settlement outside of the four holy cities, but also it's famous for its galleries. So here, it's a beautiful gallery. Unfortunately, the guy who made these pictures, and he owns the gallery, he's American. He's a former hippie. He lives in Rosh Pina since the 70s. And I really wanted to interview him, and I really wanted him to say a few words, but he said that he's too shy, and so he did not cooperate, but he did want, like, he said it's okay for me to take the photos, but of the paintings only without him there. Okay, so that's what we have. But this is a beautiful gallery, very special, very happy, very well. You see for yourself, so you should visit it whenever possible. And some more paintings in the same gallery, and more. Okay, poetry happens when nothing else can. This is something well, we can understand it, and there is so much charm to Rosh Pina. It looks a little bit like the old city of Jerusalem. It looks a little bit like Tzfat, maybe. And this is not surprising because they are located not far one from the other. And remember, the first settlers of Gay Oni, which became Rosh Pina, were from Tzfat. So just wandering around a little bit, walking into an art gallery, and walking into another little gallery selling just little beautiful curious, and walking downstairs here, because here there is a wonderful place called Chocolata. Okay, Chocolata is a coffee shop and a gallery where you can have a warm, wonderful chocolata overlooking the valley of Rosh Pina. It is closed now, but normally it is open, and this is where we normally have our hot chocolate as we tour Rosh Pina. Okay, let's take a little break. Let's sit a little bit on a bench, and then after relaxing for a while, we start walking along this little street, the street of the Boulevard. Okay, that's what it's called because Baron Rothschild, who supported the settlers, was French, of course. So Boulevard is something he could identify himself with. So let's start walking down the Boulevard. This is the original street. It was renovated, of course, it was fixed, but this is how it looked like in the end of the 19th century. So now we are walking to two of our next destinations, and one of them, this is what it looks on the outside, and this is what it looks from inside. It's a tiny little museum which is dedicated to this gentleman and this insect. The gentleman is Professor Gidon Mer, and the insect is a mosquito of a special species which is called Anopheles, and this is the one and the only mosquito which is the malaria agent. I mean, if this one bites you, and if he could bite somebody sick with malaria, so you will be sick as well. And malaria was one of the major problems for the settlers of Zichron Yaakov and Rosh Pina and so many other locations. So Gidon Mer was the one who was researching malaria, and he was among the scientists who finally found a cure for malaria. And we will be thankful for him forever for that. So he lived in Rosh Pina, he worked in Rosh Pina, and so this little museum is dedicated to malaria and Gidon Mer in Rosh Pina. And this structure, well, it's called Beit HaPkidut, the House of the Clerks. A few years after Rosh Pina was established, they started crying for help because once again, they had malaria, they had no knowledge, they had no money, they had so many troubles, they needed support. And just like it happened in Zichron Yaakov, they cried for help, and this gentleman helped them indeed. And this is Baron Rothschild, of course. So he purchased their land, and they gave them the money, and this was built as the house of the clerk who was in charge of the settlement on behalf of Baron Rothschild. But Baron Rothschild, he wanted to help them, but he also wanted to make sure that they will make some money here, okay? He needed profit. So one of his ideas, remember in Zichron Yaakov, he decided that the best would be to make wine, right? And so he planted so many vineyards. Rosh Pina is no good place for vineyard, and therefore he planted mulberry trees, okay? And if you plant mulberry trees, that means that you're trying to make money off silk industry. It's a bit hard to imagine, but yes, they had a big silk making factory, and they had the silkworms, and they actually made silk in Rosh Pina and Yesod HaMa'ala. It didn't really work for a few reasons, so it was shut down a few years later, but we still have mulberry trees in Rosh Pina and a few other communities which were supported by Baron Rothschild, including Zichron Yaakov. So, well, it's a bit sad that we don't have silk made in Israel. We don't. And another something which we must mention as we visit Rosh Pina, and this is another connection between Zichron Yaakov and Rosh Pina. This gentleman in the center, his name is Aharon Aharonson, and he was the founder of what, Lana? You know, he was the founder of the underground movement called Nili, of course. Yes. Exactly. And Aharon Aharonson established the Nili underground movement in Zichron Yaakov in order to help the British against the Ottomans during World War I. Okay, but this is not the reason for us to mention him here in Rosh Pina. Well, the reason why I'm talking about him is because before he became the founder and before there was Nili, he was a botanist, and he was a agronomist. Okay? He studied in Sorbonne in France. Baron Rothschild paid for his education because he was so talented. And Aharon Aharonson was looking for the original species of wheat. He was looking for something which is called the mother of wheat, the wild wheat. And he found the wild wheat in Rosh Pina. In the property which belonged to the second family, which never left Rosh Pina, the family of Keller. So he made it to Rosh Pina looking for the wild wheat, and he did find it in Rosh Pina. This yellow little flower here is called Aharonsonia. It's named after Aharon Aharonson. Okay. And the last thing we're going to visit in Rosh Pina, and then, in the old part of Rosh Pina, and then we are going to another wonderful, wonderful place, is Nimrod Lookout. Just before we started the presentation, I got an email. I saw that I got an email from Howard, I think. And he sent me some beautiful photos, which he took from here, from Nimrod Lookout. So if you'd like, you're welcome to share your photos later. This is a beautiful, beautiful place, beautiful lookout, which is a memorial for Nimrod Segev. He was a Almond Corps soldier, and he was killed in Lebanon back in 2006 in the Second Lebanese War. And he is fourth generation in Rosh Pina, and his father, Chezi Segev, he built this lookout as a memorial for Nimrod. And this is indeed a very, it is a sad and meaningful and beautiful place. And this is where we will finish our very brief tour of the old town of Rosh Pina. And by the way, there's a very good place to have lunch later. There are beautiful bed and breakfast around there. I mean, there's so much more to do in Rosh Pina, but this is enough for us today. And now we are going to a totally different place. It's called the Wood Song. It belongs to Peter Izakovich, and it is located just a little bit downhill at the main junction as you drive into Rosh Pina from the main road, from road number 90. And as you can see, the whole thing is dedicated to musical instruments, which are entirely built by Peter, who immigrated from South Africa, but he will tell you that by himself, okay? Once again, I'm not sure if Peter is here. Peter, האם אתה כאן?
Hi, Julia. I'm here.
Hi, Peter, איזה יופי. Okay, I didn't see you.
Can you see me? Because, can you see me?
No. Maybe your camera is, you should open your camera, Peter. There is a little, like, in your lower left corner, there is a little icon of a camera.
On the left.
We got it. You did it. You're done.
On the left
I'm in.
corner,
We can see
it's
you.
on. Okay.
Oh, yeah, we can see you.
Okay, I can't see myself.
Hey,
but
Peter. Hey. Okay, we see you. That's enough. Okay, wonderful. Stay there. Don't move. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so this is Peter. Well, he will say a few words about himself, but I would like you first to listen to his, he's just amazing, okay? I have a few little videos which I took with Ofer the day before yesterday. So you will listen to the music, you will look at him, and then he will say a few words to you. So right now, enjoy.
I grew up in South Africa, came to Israel in '72, and all my life I've been mesmerized by music of all kinds, starting with African music in South Africa. And at the age of 53, after we left kibbutz Mayan Baruch, where we had lived for 13 years, I decided to make my living from what I enjoy. So I opened this place, Woodsong, 20 years ago in Rosh Pina, which is a place which is exactly suitable for this kind of weird business.
It is getting more and more difficult. And well, this is not what you think it is, okay? You think this is a musical instrument. So it is, but it's not just a musical instrument. Well, this is a coffee table. And this is the lesson final, and this is the most amazing. I mean, this is a harp, of course, and this is a didgeridoo, which is a traditional musical instrument of the Aborigines in Australia. You can see quite a few other didgeridoos here, and he's playing both at the same time, which is something I can't even think of. But he is here with us, so he can say something about his abilities later. So just listen to it. Okay, so that was the last part of the concert. Actually, we spent so much more time there, and we enjoyed every minute. But Zoom presentation is a Zoom presentation, so it is over. And thank you for joining me, and thank you, Ofer and Peter, of course. Thank you so much. Peter is with us, and Ofer, I think, is still here. So you're welcome to ask some questions if you wish. Pete, would you like to add something about this amazing art we saw?
Hi, Julia. Hi, everyone.
Hey.
Just one thing you forgot was the door harps, which I ship to everywhere. The door harp is a nice little instrument. You hang on usually on the inside of the front door, and when you open and close the door, it rings. And you can see everything on my website.
Yeah, yeah, you can see those now. These are the door harps. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, behind me. And each one I tune to a musical chord, so it has a nice, pleasing sound. And if you have any questions about the instruments or what I do, just feel free to ask.
What is your website? Can we maybe put it in the chat for people?
It's called Woodsong.
It is.
It's woodsong.co.il.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you, Lana. Yeah, it was on the first slide about him. Okay. Well,
Julia,
any further questions?
It was great seeing you and Ofer.
Thank you. Well, thank you for all your time and effort and your performance. Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right. Thank you. See you in Rosh Pina. Okay, I will see if there are any questions on the chat. Blumenthal in German means flower valley. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. Right. So we saw the tree at the blooming valley, like perfect. Okay, how are these are trees used to defend around Gaza? Well, the thing is that when you have trees, when you have forest, it acts like a living shield. So you can move forces, you can move cars around without being noticed from the other side of the fence. It's literally a fence, a natural fence. Okay, she said, okay, with the difficult audio to understand. Did you mean Ofer's video? Yes.
Yeah, it was just very,
Okay.
ooh, it's loud. Very muted, like mumbled, so we couldn't. I don't know if all of us understood what he said.
Well, now I regret that I didn't look at the chat earlier. Well, hopefully you did. What was most important for me is for you to see Ofer, just because he is the person who lives there for 5 generations, and that's his grandfather's hotel. And he is a relative of Yigal Allon. Well, Yigal Allon was not born there. He was born in Kfar Tavor, not very far away, but this is where his father came from. So that's what I wanted you basically to hear. Okay, Howard, yeah, thank you for the photos you sent. I don't know if you want me to share it on the presentation or not, so if you'd like to share it now. Wait, stop sharing my screen. Okay. So Howard, Nimrod fathers happened to be there and told us the story. Valerie, you said this is your favorite instrument. Which one? The harp, the what was it? Oh, the marimba. Okay, the marimba. Okay. Did parrots come into Israel from released pets? Okay, this is a good question. Actually, we have a long-lasting argument about that, because the drivers, they appear like all of a sudden, and we don't know. We don't know. Some biologists believe that they escaped from, private people and from zoo. Others say no, they just migrated naturally because they live in Africa, and so theoretically they can naturally migrate north along the Syrian African Rift, along the Jordan Valley. So we don't really know, but they are relatively new in Israel, and they are all over the place. Are pine trees indigenous to Israel? It depends. We have a few species which are indigenous to Israel. Others were imported and planted. So it depends on the pine tree. This particular one is a native Israeli. And are tree planting with more diversity and the ecology of the country kept in mind? Well, this is another good question, and this is something, actually, this is another disagreement. This is another, almost a battle, between the academy and the JNF, because thing is that the academy, the scientists, believe that we have to keep the forest as diverse as possible. We should plant as many different species as possible, and keep things as natural as possible, and that means planting lots of oak trees, for instance, but the officials in JNF, they prefer to plant trees which are fast growing, they don't need much water, and you can rely on them. I mean, when you are a JNF official, you want to plant a tree and you want the result to be seen in 5 years. Like, you want to retire leaving forests after you. But if you plant oak trees, that will take 20, 25 years before you actually have a forest. And, God forbid, you can die before. And therefore, some people believe, scientists believe that we have to plant oaks and pistachio and carrots and other native trees, while the JNF prefer to plant eucalyptuses, even though they're so not native to Israel, but at least they grow fast. Okay, so yes and no. Okay, Mark wrote, Pete, you were better than Robert Zimmerman on harmonica and everything. Yeah, but not better than his daughter, who plays classical harp. Well, I'm sorry. All right, Pete, that was beautiful. Oh, Ilana, you're right. That was beautiful. I've never seen someone play the harp. Pardon?
Someone asked a question about the prices of the instruments.
Well, there's a question about, what size do you think the dorm chimes are? Chimes? What is the door chime, sir?
It's one of the things on the site?
There are 8 different models ranging in price from $94 up to I think it's $150.
And then Marcia's asking what size they are.
They're basically 2 sizes. There's one small size, which is 17.5 centimeters by 29.5. And most of them are 19.5 by 29.5 centimeters.
Marcia, I just looked at the website, and Peter's things are all listed on the website, and they're pictures of all of the door harps and prices.
Yeah,
So
I put the
check out
website there.
Right, so check out the website because it really shows everything and it tells all about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. It is, I mean, you know, I did my best so you will enjoy his wood song, but it is much better in reality, and the musical instruments are really, really, like, the sound is amazing. So you should visit the website, and then you should visit the place itself, you know, whenever possible.
After
okay, I can see one last question. How many towns? Yeah, of course. Yeah, when it is possible. So there's another question. How many towns and villages in Israel did Baron Rothschild support? So there is a different degree, let's say, of his support. Some of them were fully supported. Some later were partly supported. So it depends on what type of a support. But if we are talking about any type of a support, so we are looking at over 40 different towns, villages, and communities all over Israel, which were supported by him in this other way. Well, I think these are the questions, and thank you again. Thank you all for coming, and please, thank you so much. And Ofer and
Thanks a lot.
Ilana,
Thank you
for being here. Thank you for being our guardian angel, and I hope you enjoy the Tu Bishvat presentation dedicated to you. So, great. I hope to see you all again next week. Just a quick reminder, next week we have a presentation by a woman, Professor Ayelet Harel Shalev from Ben Gurion University, and she will be talking about the integration of women in combat units in IDF, which is a double challenge. Being a combat, being a woman in IDF, even today, I'm really looking forward to this presentation. And this presentation will be actually a summary of an academic research she made for a book she recently wrote. So this is the presentation, and the tour will be, well, we are going back to around Gaza Strip, the Gaza Strip envelope, and we will be visiting the sites which we didn't have time to visit last time. So we are not talking about rockets, we're talking about just sites and beauty. So we will be visiting a memorial for Australian and New Zealand forces. We will be visiting an ancient synagogue. We'll be visiting a farm with hanging strawberries growing there, and we will be visiting an abandoned sulfur quarry and more. So we have quite an interesting tour of Gaza Strip, and that's it. And happy Tu Bishvat.
Great.
Happy Tu Bishvat.
So much,
Julia,
Julia.
thanks so much for pulling
Planted the
together.
tree.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you, Julia.
Hey, thank you all. Hey.
Brilliant.
Hey, Valerie.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. I love that there were
Thank you.
different people speaking, music, video, saw everything.
Right.
Great.
Yeah. Well, I had to integrate the music. I didn't know if Peter is there because of the COVID, but he was there, which was great. That was really a great
It was
surprise.
so beautiful. It's just gorgeous.
That's a heck of a production, Julia. Thank you very much.
Very well done.
You're most welcome. It's good to have friends in different interesting places. Hey, Carol and Barry. Hey.
Hello.
You did not do any archaeological excavations in Rosh Pina?
Yes.
All right.
The Rosh Pina.
Oh, nice.
Is it from Rosh Pina?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Pretty.
Okay, great. So, you see, you've been everywhere.
A lot.
You've been literally
Never
everywhere.
enough in Israel. Never enough.
Pardon?
There's always someplace new to see.
There's more to see.
Always.
Yeah.
Julia or Pamela, is this, it seems to me this was somewhere near Latroon. Is there a forest or a tree farm or something? So they planted trees there and it seems to me it was near Latroon, but I don't know.
It is possible. There are so many trees planted around Latroon and on the way to Jerusalem, so that could be around Latroon. There's no way I can recognize this spot, but it's somewhere.
Yeah, I know. It seems to me it was somewhere like off the highway or something.
Well, maybe one of the forest areas.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
On the way to Jerusalem.
Yeah. That was cool. Okay. I haven't been there since, so I don't know how tall the tree is.
What tree was it, do you know?
Looks like just some kind of pine tree or something. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Okay. I planted one in Bet Zite. What? I'm sorry. I planted one in Bet Zite, but then they told me it had died. So.
Poor thing.
Well, hopefully this one's still great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Once again, you were so quiet, but good to see you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to know, you said Bedouins serve in the army there.
Right.
I wanted to know, are the Druze different from the Bedouins, and do they serve in the army as well, the Druze?
Yes. Well, actually, the Druze serve in the army in a compulsory way. I mean, they serve in the army just like we do, just like the Jews do, okay? While the Bedouins, it is not compulsory, it's up to them, but there are quite a few Bedouins who do the military service. So these are two different situations, two different legal positions. In terms of religion, the Bedouins are Muslim, while the Druze are Druze. I mean, Druze is a religion and a nationality, just like Judaism is. Jews are nationally Jews and ethnically Jews and religiously Jews. So the Druze do military service just like the Jews, but men only. While the Bedouins, they volunteer, but quite a few of them volunteer indeed.
תודה, חג שמח.
בבקשה וחג שמח.
Did you have rain, Julia, today?
Yeah, we had showers. Like each time I started going out, it was raining, and then I started doing something at home, and then it stopped raining, and so on. So actually, I never made it outdoors today.
Me either.
Maybe now.
Tomorrow it's gonna rain all day.
Yes.
I know it's gonna rain tomorrow as well, but then Shabbat should be nice.
Okay.